I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader.
Well, Trudeau's resignation came in earlier this morning, and he'll officially step aside in March. But what does this mean for the future of Canada? Here to discuss is Ezra Levant. He's a journalist and publisher of Rebel News. So, Ezra, we've been talking about this for a few weeks now. So why did Trudeau resign today?
Sure. Well, on Wednesday, his party caucus was going to have a meeting where everyone had resolved to fire him. He's being denounced by his own party members on a daily basis because he's so low in the polls. He's at 16%. I don't remember any party leader ever being that low in the polls. So he was doomed 48 hours from now, so he preempted things. He did two things. He asked the Governor General to dissolve Parliament so there can be no confidence vote, so no one can throw him out, and Parliament won't return until March 24th. So he's got 90 days of sort of a staycation. No one can fire him. At that meeting on Wednesday, they were going to try. He's free. But I was sort of tricked by his language. He says, I intend to resign, but not on March 24th. He says, whenever the Liberal Party of Canada chooses another leader. Well, we don't know when that's going to be. That could be months from now. And here's the crazy thing. The Liberal Party of Canada, which is going to choose a new leader, their rules are so loosey-goosey, foreign citizens are allowed to vote, and even people as young as 14 years old. So the next Prime Minister of Canada will not be chosen in a general election with citizens voting. It'll be chosen by an internal Liberal Party process where foreigners and children can choose. And by the way, our version of the CIA found that in the last election, the Chinese Communist Party bussed in Chinese nationals in 11 different districts in Canada to interfere in that same process. So we're in a mess. And by the way, 2 weeks from today, Donald Trump has said if we don't fix our border, he's going to bring big tariffs against Canada. So we've got the worst, weakest government in memory, and we've got this existential threat coming in 14 days.
Unbelievable. Ezra, tell us about the mood. What do you see across the landscape? What's the mood like in Canada?
You know, Justin Trudeau is not just disliked, he's hated. And this is not my opinion. The pollsters say, do you like him or like him a lot? Do you dislike him or dislike him a lot? And people don't just dislike Trudeau, they hate him. Every demographic group, every age group, every race, women and men. I've never seen anything like it. And I think they're just sick of him and they want him to leave the stage, but he will not. He's got a little bit of an authoritarian streak in him. He's never really been that democratic. Maybe it's a chip off the old block. People always said he was, you know, the secret love child of Fidel Castro and Margaret Trudeau. I don't know if that's true, but sometimes it sure seems that way. Remember, Trudeau once said, the country he most admires is communist China. The reason I tell you that is because Trudeau doesn't believe democracy applies to him. In fact, when he announced his future resignation today, he took no responsibility. He said the only reason he's going to resign sometime in the future is because his own party was bickering so much. He never takes any blame, never takes any responsibility, and he really doesn't care about democracy. Imagine dissolving your own parliament to avoid being fired. He's really treating the government as his own personal property, and that's dangerous when Donald Trump is coming with tariffs.
Well, Ezra, you laid out who you think, all the ways that all these people can be voting, but who do you think they're actually going to be voting for? Who are some of the names right now that are going to be in the mix for the next prime minister?
Well, and that's the thing. They're going to choose the prime minister within the Liberal Party, and only months after that will we have a general election. So the candidates to succeed Trudeau are going to be Liberals. His deputy prime minister, Chrystia Freeland, the former Bank of England governor, Mark Carney, who's a real carbon tax advocate. It almost doesn't matter because in that general election, the Conservative leader of Canada is going to blow them all away. According to polls, the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, is ahead by more than 20%. It's going to be a massacre. And sure, changing Liberal leaders might make a little bit of difference, but Canadians are so resolved. They are sick of this mess. It's even more than in the U.S. The last 4 years in America, a lot of Americans were just ready to get rid of Joe Biden, and then they switched to Kamala Harris as a bait and switch. That's sort of what Trudeau did. People are so sick of Trudeau, so they're going to do a switch. We don't know who our Kamala Harris is going to be, but whoever it is going to get massacred in the next election. As I would say to my American friends, this is a big drama going on right now, and it looks atrocious right now. But just give us a few months, give us 6 months, and we're going to have an excellent, young, principled, conservative, smart prime minister who I think will get along well with Donald Trump and make our two countries stronger together. Don't judge. We're at our worst now. I'm almost embarrassed that the world is watching it. But if you can just give us a few more months, we'll be ready to deal with the world like grown-ups again.
Well, Ezra, we can't say you're alone in this. In the U.S. right now, there still is a president, I think, I've heard, in power, and Trump hasn't quite taken office yet. But throughout the world in the West, we see a similar problem. The dynamic is not only a rising populism or conservatism, whatever you want to call it, but a struggle for that to take political form in a party and an organization that actually represents the people. So, you see in many of these European countries, for instance, this struggle against the immigration and everything else, but even the purported, conservatives don't actually do their bidding. Of course, famously in the U.S., Trump basically stands for the anti-establishment. He's the anti-establishment candidate on the right, kicking old Republicans out like Mitch McConnell. So how does that play here? It sounds like you're pretty high on this new guy, and like he is principled. He's going to come up. Is there a party structure or a built-out conservative party that is strong in Canada and rising, or what?
Sure. Until now, I've been talking about the Liberal Party and their shenanigans, but let's switch to the Conservative Party. Yeah. You're right. We have a new Conservative Party leader in Canada named Pierre Poilievre. He replaced a Conservative in name only called Erin O'Toole. Give me 1 minute on him. I don't know if you remember, but in February 2022, there was this huge trucker convoy that drove to Ottawa to oppose the lockdowns and the vaccine mandates, and it was this beautiful, huge, peaceful, freedom-loving grassroots protest. And the Conservative leader in that day said to his members of Parliament, "You're not allowed to go to talk to the truckers." Well, the Conservative Party threw out that Conservative in name only, Erin O'Toole, and elected a new, truly conservative leader named Pierre Poilievre. Now, obviously, he's not perfect, but he is so much better than that guy they chucked out. And I don't know. I think that he's going to be more in sync with the freedom and populist agenda of Donald Trump. Obviously, Pierre Poilievre is going to stand up for Canada. He's a Canada first guy, and he uses that phrase. But I think you can be Canada first, like Giorgia Meloni is Italy first. And you can get along with Donald Trump, America first, because you're dealing with nationalists who oppose globalism, who oppose carbon taxes, who oppose mass immigration. I think that Pierre Poilievre will be able to do business with Donald Trump. Let me give you an example. Canada is the largest exporter of oil to the United States. That's a security issue, an economic issue. Like, our two countries are so closely intertwined. Compare that to Trudeau, who was anti-oil, pro-carbon tax, anti-pipeline. So I think Americans are going to find a much more amenable partner. Let me give you one more quote from the new Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre. He says we've got to replace the woke culture in our military with a warrior culture. Well, that sounds like the United States spirit there. I think you're going to see more collegiality on foreign affairs. Trudeau was pro-Hamas. Pierre Poilievre is pro-Israel. So again, you're going to see an ally. I sometimes say you guys are 10 times bigger than Canada, population-wise. So you're the senior partner. It's like you're Batman and we're Robin. That's what I hope we can get back to. I don't like the fact that Trump and Trudeau were fighting. I think Trudeau picked a lot of stupid fights, but I think we can get past that when Poilievre takes over, God willing, in 6 months.
Ezra, better days are ahead. We'll give you that grace period of about 6 months or so, and we'll see you with better days ahead for Canada. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
I like that, Batman and Robin there, Matthew.
Hey, sounds good.
We actually have some hope there up north, as he was saying.
I think like he's saying, I mean, it was well said that when you do have a Canada first or any country that puts their own interests first and rejects globalism, they're going to get along. And what's really heartening is what he's saying about the rise of new leadership that really does stand for where a lot of Canadians are. And that's, if you have that, I mean, then he's absolutely right. We'll check in and see. Sounds good.